The reporting said that there was a optionally convertible, but there was no optionally convertible. There are compulsorily convertible debentures that they've used to fund this asset, and the court has just said this was done, and there was an argument saying that you can't do it with debt, but that was put to rest. That's it. They haven't said that this is a problem. Their main issues, the main issue
but
is
CCD is never treated as debt technically.
Yeah, it is not.
It's always equity.
Yes, but the
तुम्हारे बैलेंस शीट में कैसे आता है?
अरे सर ऐसे नहीं देखा जाता. It is compulsorily convertible means it's treated as quasi equity, sir.
Yeah.
Now you can argue on the balance sheet for 3, 4, 5, 15 years it's debt, but sir, I am telling you the reality that it is treated as quasi equity for all practical purposes.
The other thing is, what the main reason why this whole thing happened is one, is that they were considered a related party.
We are live actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so we were discussing
the JSW case.
Let's just continue discussing it.
So I'll tell you.
What's your reading of that judgment?
I mean, it was like I had to close my eyes for some time because it was so aggressive and intense. The Supreme Court basically, see, the issues that the Supreme Court has highlighted. One is that there was a whole debate about JSW being a related party because they had invested in a third joint venture with Bushian Power in the past, and therefore they were exempt or not exempt, excluded from participating in this entire process, which was overlooked completely. ED brought it up in court, but the NCLAT supposedly passed a judgment saying that aisa kuch bhi nahi hai, and the Supreme Court said you have no right to say anything like that. In such cases, you have to come to us and only we say okay. That's the first one. The second one was timing. So 2019 May they got the approval. The money came in only in 2021. So for 2 years they sat and wasted, saying that there is a lot of disruption happening right now because of the ED case. ED has attached some assets, so we will not put money. Every resolution plan has to be done without conditions being precedent. So either you in the document you put conditions precedent, which is that ye sab ho jayega, so we will give you money. And if your thing about the ED was not part of that conditions precedent, there is no reason that you should delay it for 2 years. There was nothing, I mean, I tweeted about it, it was nothing else than abhi mere ko nahi karna hai. That is the kind of attitude that it took, which the Supreme Court said, utter nonsense. Plus, the Supreme Court has alleged, now of course this is an allegation, it will have to be proven in a separate case, but alleged some kind of collusion with the resolution professional and the committee of creditors, which was a big allegation that was made in the Supreme Court order. And JSW will need to now clarify all of these things, saying why did we wait for 2 years to put the money in? Was there any collusion at all with these people? Because they are arriving at this collusion.
Is of no use, right? Means
I mean, it will clear their name at least.
No, it has to be done while the case was getting argued, right? All these things have to be done.
Those clarifications were made. So now what JSW can do is probably go for a curative petition.
But curative cannot change the judgment.
It can only fix
an aspect of a judgment where an inadvertent error has happened in.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed. And that is exactly what they will try to do, but the conditions precedent in that case is that the Supreme Court has to also agree that it galat hai. So we need to fix this.
So to give a perspective, when this Spectrum and the entire thing, AGR case came in and companies went for curative petition, either they were thrown out or they had to withdraw those petitions from the court, because the Supreme Court does not encourage those kind of things, because it's basically talking about you're questioning our judgment basically in that sense, right? In that sense. So
that is exactly what happened in this case also.
So how does it happen how will the banks react now? Because 25,000 crores?
19,350 crore is what JSW paid.
So the banks have to return this money to JSW?
They do. Yes. They do. According to previous order, 2 months they promise to return if the case comes out the way it did. That they will have to follow. Benefit, there is a benefit here. Okay. So in these 4 years since they took over, 2021 they took over the asset, by 2025, JSW has really turned around the Bushian Power plant, right? And the benefit of that is that now when the liquidation happens and this asset is sold to another investor, not JSW, because they are considered related party, so they can't participate even in liquidation. So if somebody else comes and buys it, they're probably going to get more than 19,350 crore because the asset is much better value.
Does the banks have to give JSW with interest or it's
No. It'll just be
whatever is the amount paid.
The amount is it?
Yeah.
So basically they park the
so
funds.
so there will be so there will be and that's a good thing for banks, I think.
Yeah.
You're going to make a really good return on this asset.
You never know. Liquidation can turn other way around.
No, sir. The haircut was very large.
The haircut was
60%.
60%, yeah, roughly. Because I think the asset was valued at the debt was about 32,000 crore, roughly, right? Usme se 19,350 crore they got back. So, you're going to get...
So, when you reverse this, because the provisions were reversed by the banks will again have to take a provision now
No, so once
the
money that needs to be paid to the people will be, it will have to be done in Q1. So there is no scope of any provision because
but
provision
will it go through the P&L and they have to take a hit?
They have already taken 100% hit na pehle se. When the asset was under insolvency.
When they reversed it, na?
They reversed only a portion of it. They only reversed only a portion of it.
तो वही वापस जाएगा ना फिर?
हाँ, वही वापस जाएगा. वो वापस चला जाएगा. तो for a bank, net there's nothing. Net क्या होएगा? When the liquidation happens, that money will come to the banks essentially, and that will more or less account for whatever they are paying the JSW.
The liquidation process is totally different from a point of view of a strategic sale, right?
Yeah.
Means where each and every asset then now goes for.
Agreed.
It could be mines, it could be plant, machinery, everything, land, everything goes separately as a liquidation, right?
Yeah, but no. So that this goes to the core of insolvency, right? When the insolvency was originally introduced, there was a waterfall mechanism that was thought about when it comes to liquidation. But that waterfall mechanism technically doesn't apply to a sale under insolvency, which is as part of the resolution process. If you do a sale, which is what happened in this case, that liquidation doesn't necessarily have to apply. But historically, for all cases, banks have followed the same principle, which is that your financial creditors are at the top of the payout. Then your operational creditors come in, then your statutory dues are paid, which is tax department ho gaya, land department ho gaya, jo bhi, whatever government dues are there.
So they must have paid some amount to the operational creditors also?
350 crore they paid.
तो वो भी वापस देना पड़ेगा?
हाँ, of course. But वो operational creditor को भी मिलेगा ना पैसा वापस. Everybody will liquidation के बाद पैसा सब में
तो
बटेगा ना.
Operational creditors को वापस देना पड़ेगा ना पैसा?
हाँ, ठीक है, temporarily, and then they'll get back that money.
कौन सा operational creditor ऐसे वापस देता है?
उन्होंने तो केस फाइल किया है. The whole case was fought by the operational creditors and Sanjay Singhal, the promoter. But the opposing party in this case is the operational creditors. Kalyani Transport karke is one of the larger operational creditors, is the person who actually filed the case, and a bunch of other people came together for this. So the story being that the only loser here at this point in time is JSW, because they have bought the asset, they have worked on improving it, they've spent man hours, they've spent effort, सब करके अभी now you have to give it to somebody else. So हाथ से चला जाएगा.
And they can't bid for it.
They can't bid for it because 29A.
But liquidation में भी नहीं कर सकते.
29A applies to all kinds of sales.
So it's
and they won't even make money from it. Just for clarification,
they'll just get back their money.
It'll work exactly like a resolution plan.
Yeah,
like as if
so
JSW
again it goes to a fresh committee of creditors.
Yeah, the committee of creditors will have to be reinstituted because it was disbanded after the sale happened, no?
And what about the resolution professional?
They'll have to appoint a new one. Like the IBC allows you to appoint a fresh liquidator. Somebody who will come in and actually run the process of liquidation. So that you can appoint, you don't have to continue with the resolution professional, you can hire a new one. And considering the resolution professional in this case has gotten a lot of flack by the Supreme Court, you'll have to bring
so it goes back to the NCLT now.
The thing is that in case there is some kind of legal tangle in this case, because nobody is going to quietly let it happen, right? Obviously, people will create some kind of noise, banks included. I mean, so we were talking to SBI after the results on Saturday, and the point that they said is that the person who has to take the lead is the aggrieved resolution applicant, which is JSW Steel in this case. We will join the cause, is what originally was thought about. But of course, remember that conversation is happening 12 hours after the judgment came. So we need to see what the banks end up doing, and that's so SBI is only one of the lenders.
And there's very little scope, right, to do anything at this point from JSW Steel or SBI's perspective. There's very little that you
we will have to see whether the lawyers come up with some brilliant strategy to counter this, but
then it again goes into a long drawn long-run process.
Long-run process, exactly.
Right?
So the doubts will start again, the uncertainty will start again. In the interim, the estimates are that 14% of JSW's revenue is going to get affected because of this one asset.
And around 10% of EBITDA.
So it's a material hit.
So while we were talking about SBI, what's the take on SBI and Kotak Mahindra Bank, which happened over the
I think Vishy spoke with SBI, so I'll allow him to take the lead on SBI.
So on SBI, a few things showed up well as far as the results are concerned. Yes, there was a profit dip. Net profit did fall year on year, 10% roughly. That fall was because of a one-off provision write-back that happened last year. This year they didn't have that write-back, so adjusting for that, the profit fell. But the good thing for me was that they are getting closer to that 1 lakh crore net profit target, annual net profit target that they have at internally SBI. And the SBI chairman, I asked this question to him, and he said that in about 2 or 3 years they should be able to hit that. If the conversion, so their conversion is 64% of their operating profit goes into net profit. So if that continues, then of course in 2 to 3 years they should be able to reach the 1 lakh crore number. What stood out for me was also asset quality. 1.82% gross NPA, sub 2%, SBI sub 2% gross NPA is unheard of for a bank of SBI's size.
The only thing which I was little, disappointed was the guidance with respect to the advances. They're talking about 12 to 13% growth.
So explain
much lower than
in terms of pace of growth, yes, it is lower, but you have to also remember that
the
base is very large, much larger than most other banks put together. So,
but even last year, FY25 was 14% or something.
14% roughly, yeah.
So you're talking about less than last year, and domestic reasons are the one which is there.
So there are domestic reasons. One of the reasons why their corporate credit growth slowed down this quarter is because there were a lot of prepayments on loans that happened. That's the management had pointed out.
So PSUs are paying back the money.
Paying back the money. The other thing
which is a question mark, because PSUs are the largest capex drivers.
Yes,
and
at this stage.
Instead of using the cash, they are paying back the
loans. I'll come to the other point of this, but on the foreign book, he has sounded some concern because with the global tariff uncertainties that are existing.
How big is the foreign book?
Sizable. I'm not sure of the number, but it's quite sizable. In fact, this quarter, that 14%, that number has come because of the foreign book, because the domestic book has not grown that fast.
Okay.
It's actually the foreign book that has grown faster, and that's why the net percentage is higher. So, as far as your State Bank of India is concerned, they are sounding concerns around the global uncertainty, and they're saying that will affect. But having said that, your domestic engine is going to run, right? One thing that they keep highlighting is their pipeline. They've got a 3.4 lakh crore loan pipeline, of which 1.7 is approved, waiting to be disbursed. As stages of implementation happen, the loan gets disbursed. The remaining 1.7 lakh crore is in the works, ready to be approved as soon as the underwriting is completed on that loan. So that portfolio is still strong. The point of this was that the portfolio is still strong. Plus, now they will start pushing on the retail book as well. They've grown the unsecured book slower so far, but he's pointing out that we are also adding a lot of salary accounts to our business, which means that more corporate customers are going to come in, people who are salaried employed people are going to come in, and therefore to lend to them will be an opportunity that will open up. Net, however, a 12-13% credit growth is not that great, but for SBI, I think in terms of its base, that's a pretty decent number.
Just kind of highlighting that. Just a 13
likes and subscribe and send in your questions, because we're going to start taking the questions.
A 13% credit growth virtually means the full size of a lot of banks in the country. Maybe 4 or 5 banks, just if I were to exclude, maybe 6 or 7 banks if I were to exclude UCO, maybe a Union Bank, etc., having large book sizes. But outside of that, 14% growth in 1 year.
The equivalent of a small private bank you're adding to your balance sheet.
Every year.
Let's come to Kotak. The MFI pain continues.
Yeah, that's been the pain point for Kotak, and growth also has been the pain point. They've said 1.5 to 2x, they've not done
There's
it.
a couple of
They
downgrades
keep
that have come
saying-
in for Kotak, right?
So a couple of downgrades have come in, but sir, just to kind of contextualize that, the downgrade has come and there's been a target price hike.
Target price hike, yeah.
So all of the downgrades that we've seen
From
since
buy
the
to
morning,
hold, but target price has gone up.
yes, but that's also because the stock has done ever so well. 22% is what the stock has given in terms of returns in the year to date till Friday. Of course, I exclude today's fall, but even including today's fall, 15-16% return. In 4 months, that's as good as you can get if from a Nifty 50 company, right? You can't expect anything more. So in that sense, maybe it's a little bit of the run up also, which is leading to this downgrade of sorts. I wouldn't technically therefore call it a downgrade. But my worry would still be that why isn't growth coming in?
Yeah.
You know, Kotak is known to grow at 20-25%.
And this quarter, everything opened up for them, no? The RBI removed the restrictions in the Jan-March quarter, so they should have...
So 4% sequential kiya.
In the month of April,
Hey, but credit card has not grown.
Has not
It's
grown.
actually shrunk.
So adjusted for
portfolio
the
shrunk.
Stanchart book, it's just 2% sequential or something like that. So it's slower. I'm not sure, Vishi, Sajeet sir, whether this is a concern, but at least it's a concern for me. Why are they focusing on acquisitions?
Yeah.
What's the problem
Why
with
not
regard to
organic
growing
growth?
organic?
Yeah.
There is enough and more opportunity available for someone like a Kotak. Why acquire and try and grow a book? You want to acquire for a specific purpose to say that I want to understand microfinance better and I want to do that business better. I want to iron out. That's a different case. But why focus on that?
Yeah.
Why put management bandwidth behind saying that no, we will do inorganic actively?
Correct.
Why say that?
So are
That
they
kind
saying
of
that-
shows,
So
you know, that.
but it may not be in unsecured or microfinance. It could be
The last acquisition they did was unsecured.
unsecured.
And उसके पहले microfinance.
So दोनों में पेन है अभी.
Yeah, Sonata किया उन्होंने
और
and
इसीलिए
Sansi का
तुमने
book.
और इसीलिए तुमको वो नंबर्स दिख रहे हैं जो प्रोविजंस का नंबर जो क्रेडिट कॉस्ट का नंबर बड़ा है whereas traditionally Kotak has never been a bank where you will see high credit costs. So so maybe some of those issues are a bit of a concern with regard to Kotak. And if you remember, I had stacked out the banks at the start of this quarter. I had stacked out my preference in terms of how banks would perform. And Kotak was, so ICICI was first. I mean, the assessment, I believe even Vishy will agree.
100%.
ICICI was top notch. Kotak was my second. Not anymore because of the delivery not happening. You know,
So
and
now SGC
maybe that's a
bank
miss
goes
on
up?
my part.
SGC
to kind
bank
of-
goes up now.
No, it doesn't actually.
Or Axis goes up.
I would still wait and watch with HDFC. Axis goes up, but I believe that's temporary again.
Yeah.
It's only temporary. I believe Axis has done what it's done in terms of ROA by tweaking some metrics.
Correct.
Only because they want to do the fundraise.
Correct.
Sorry to say, but this is my assessment of the reality.
No, it's a fact. Na? RIDF they have brought down for this purpose only, so that it boosts their name, boosts their ROA. It's just how it is.
So they've just tried to handle optics to try and get their fundraise through at a decent valuation.
But it's just like an auto company doing a product mix to get a better margin, right?
But that's
But this is for a fundraise, sir, not for a better margin.
Better margin in this
the outcome
very
of that is
different.
irrelevant. No, but I'm sorry. The argument here is that so what? I mean, that is business, na?
Business, no,
that is the business. You have to make it look better. You have to make your
the-
metrics look better.
At the end of the day,
So-
if you're looking at
No,
ROA
sir,
and
so
like
all I'm
delivering
saying
on
is
ROA,
I'm trying to peg it to what I had predicted at the start of the quarter, because if you remember, we had done that short. You, Mahima, and me had you and Mahima had made sure that I give a precise, sequence of which bank will do how. So I had put Kotak second over there, and Axis and SBI were maybe third and fourth, and thereafter. So my only change there would be that for this quarter, Axis has likely done better than Kotak,
Better than
but
Kotak, yeah.
only from a perspective that one, it comes from a very low base. So the expectations are only very, very low.
Yeah.
And second is, I believe that they've tweaked their metrics to try and make sure that they get a good number so that they can do a decent fundraise.
Yeah.
And then thereafter they'll go back to their old ways and try to again slowly course.
We'll have to see. I don't know. So the core with Axis has always been profitable growth, right? Like even though they say that they want to chase profitable growth, and one of the reasons why they've not grown on the corporate side is they have been highlighting this that they want to do profitable growth. And the argument earlier was, where is the showing
Yeah,
all this profitable
absolutely.
growth you're talking about, where is this number, right? Now the ROA has improved, your net interest margin is looking relatively better. It's fallen, but it's not as sharp a fall as the others have seen. But I think the core delivery of their core business, right, that is still, to me, I still need to see some amount of improvement. Axis pushed the pedal a few years ago, I think about 7 years ago, and then they paid a price for it because their defaults shot up a lot. So obviously now they're going to be a little bit concerned. And Rajiv Anand is leaving, so that is another, you've got a senior official going out.
I just wanted to ask you one simple thing, right? I mean, going to FY26, of course, the product mix can change. You have headwinds with respect to MFI, unsecured, everything. Going to FY26, and if I want you to rank those 5 banks, right? I'm going to ask again both of you on the clear metrics of risk management and based on that, how you perform. Okay. Your risk management measures should be in place going into a FY26, which has mostly global headwinds coming in, and maybe Indian geopolitical headwinds which is coming in that. Which are how you sequence them? Which bank has the best, and then you come down. ICICI, HDFC. This is not my sequence. ICICI, HDFC, Axis, SBI, and Kotak. You 5 go up.
Okay.
So ICICI, HDFC, I'll start with those 2 only.
Risk management in sabka acha hai.
Yes, ICICI, HDFC, right up there. Very close, HDFC, very close second in terms of risk management. Third will likely be SBI. Kotak. Thereafter SBI, thereafter Axis.
Okay. For me, SBI is at the top. I think for the size of their book, managing the default rate at where it is at this point in time. For me, SBI is at the top. ICICI comes a very close second, purely on risk management, because they have not made a misstep at all since the new CEO has come in, which is now 7 years old. Then HDFC Bank, then Axis, then Kotak, to me.
Why I was asking about this risk management is, your profitability or your missteps can be managed by risk management. If you have a decent risk management, you can be rest assured that even if you are your advances are growing at industry level of 8 to 10%, you can easily get 10 to 12%, and you can get away with a good decent number, and street would be happy with it. Yeah. But if your risk management is bad, then your profit
doesn't matter what is happening.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that's something which is there.
Vishy, does it bother you from an SBI perspective that recoveries haven't come through this time?
I think recoveries have always been chunky. Have always come at a specific time. You get a bunch of recoveries, and then things sort of remain flat otherwise. Also, the fact that banks are horrible at recovering money. Actually, Indian banks have had a very poor history of recovering strong amounts of money. One of the points that SBI chairman had said during the press conference was they're recovering, I think, about 2,300, 2,500 crore roughly on a quarterly basis. Look at the size that they're dealing with, right? 2,500 crore, तो कहाँ कोई
nothing
गायब हो जाएगा it will be some
decimal point.
It doesn't matter to SBI, right? And this is true historically across banks. You have had this is probably why one of the things that a lot of experts seem to say is that banks should not be in the recovery business. That is not something that they know how to do. When I say recovery, I'm specifically talking about NPAs that are lying on the book. SBI has a thing called OCA, which is assets under collection account, right? So any assets that are 100% provided for are put under OCA. They're taken out of the balance sheet because provisioning ho gaya hai, so it's net asset value.
Do they sell it off to ARCs and all?
That is what they should be doing. If not ARCs, then some distressed fund. Kisi ko to becho, but then they sit on it. And their recovery is absolutely horrible.
What is the total quantum of that assets? Which is
I'm not sure, but it will be a couple of lakh crores at least at SBI because it's large bank, and therefore this thing is there.
Couple of lakh crores, sir, and the market capitalization of SBI is maybe 4 times that. So I'm just like kind of signaling that.
Yeah. So that I think I think as far as when you ask
25%
if it
of
worries
the
you,
market cap.
I think that they don't know how to do it. I don't think Indian banks know how to recover money from.
So it's for everyone,
people.
is what you're
Yeah,
saying, regardless
So
of.
You should-
there's a
you should
question from
set it off.
Ronal, Vishy, for you
Yeah.
especially. SBI's NPA has decreased because of higher write-offs.
Yeah.
This also led to hit in PAT. So how should we judge this overall increased write-offs but lower NPA?
Yeah, as I said earlier, so write-offs get a bad rep among a lot of people. This is because you think of write-offs as bank has provided for it using taxpayer money, and then they have left it, right? It's lying in some dark dungeon in the bank's balance sheet, and we don't know what is happening there. While partly you're right that it is more or less put in the back burner, and hopefully some recovery comes out of it. The fact is that the newer NPAs are actually getting sold, and the newer NPAs are mostly retail. They are getting sold. ARCs have seen a resurgence in their business because they have reinvented themselves as retail asset recovery companies, and they are able to get money out of it because these are younger NPAs, right? So in NPAs there's a concept called age, and as NPAs age, it becomes more difficult to recover money from them, especially when it comes to retail. Because if somebody has let's say a credit card debt which is 5 years old, they're not going. I mean, they moved on in life. If as opposed to somebody who's 3 months or 6 months old, they will want to clear their name and get their credit score back into order. The person who's been in default for 5 years doesn't care about the credit score. So उनसे recovery करना तो आप भूल जाओ.
वहाँ पर हेयरकट भी बहुत ज़्यादा होगा.
हाँ, usually haircut settle. Yeah, you have to settle and you have to move on. That's the best way to do it. But because these are younger NPAs, the chances of recovery are higher, better. One thing that SBI tried, which they don't talk about it anymore, most likely because the success rate may not be that good, is that they hired these startups which deal with asset recovery. They initially talked a lot about it. If you remember, there was a story about sending chocolates to the defaulter's house, saying that a reminder you have to repay your debt, right? I don't think that has done that well now. I think पैसे वापस नहीं किए किसी ने. So that is most likely why it's happening. I think the best thing that banks can do is sell off these assets, get rid of them. This is not something that you should be focused on. You should be focused on growing the business. You should be focused on monitoring the existing assets on your portfolio rather than worrying about old assets.
This is Nagesh Golavilli's question. AU small bank has run up 30%. Can we enter now for 5 years time frame? Now we can't tell you about buy and sell of a stock, but from a fundamental point of view, how's AU finance, small finance looking at? And Vishy, he's talking about 5-year time frame.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a RBI thing, saying that how do you graduate a small from
Yes,
a graduate small
and
bank,
they are at the top of the list.
Bank to a universal bank.
AU is at the top of the list. Yeah.
So if you can talk about that, that would be much better. Saying that what is the better thing.
Yeah, so first off, when you, just in very layman terms, when you're graduating from a small finance bank to a larger bank, or rather to a full-scale bank as they call it, you'll be allowed to lend to all cohorts. That's the one big advantage you have. Second is your book size has gone up substantially, and therefore you're able to lend to something like a
Is there a threshold for the book size before you can apply for that?
No, there isn't
there
any.
isn't.
There's a profitability requirement.
Threshold that in last 3 years you have to be profitable. You have to
Your
GNPA,
NPS will be
your
below a certain amount.
NNPA,
Yeah.
certain should be below. In fact, GNPA should be below 3,
Correct.
NNPA should be below 1. Something. Some of those thresholds need to be
And
taken care of.
regulatory cash holdings has to be.
Correct.
It's the same for small and normal banks, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that there is no difference.
The regulatory capital is the same, irrespective of which bank it is.
But you can in a small finance bank you can only lend
Up to 1 lakh
up to a certain
1 lakh,
ticket
right?
size and up to, and to a certain cohort
certain
of
cohort of borrowers.
customers.
75% has to be towards
Yeah.
basically.
So those caps go away. So now as a full scale bank you can lend. Now where EU is concerned, in any case they've been lending and they've always built their business around the MSME space, where they lend to at 15% yielding products to some of these riskier small and medium enterprises.
Yeah.
And therefore, and they started from Jaipur and thereafter they've just grown geographically. So maybe geographic presence also matters when you're looking at a full scale bank. it's not listed as something which is material, but I'm sure RBI keeps a track of it and an eye on it, that it's not an extremely regionally specific
Correct.
player. It has more diversity and stuff like that.
No, by
as
that
well.
logic, a federal bank or a city union bank.
No,
or
but
a
Federal
South
Bank will
Indian
be the first one to jump and tell you that 55% of the business comes from outside Kerala. So they will
No,
be like, we are.
region wise.
Yes, I mean, so the thing is that anything that is not headquartered in, say, Mumbai or Delhi, it's easy to think of it as a regional entity. But core business actually for most banks in India is well diversified. Very few old generation private sector banks may maybe say a Dhanlakshmi type bank will be more.
Yeah, City Union Bank.
Yeah, so they will be more regional focused, but
Yeah.
vast majority of the banks in India are actually well
But
diversified.
that's not a restricting
It is not.
argument
Yeah.
for conversion
Not
of
at all.
small banks.
It's not, but wouldn't RBI at some level also look
Yeah.
at it? I mean, as a
For
factor.
sure.
That's what I'm saying, sir. It may not be on paper as a requirement, but I'm
Yeah.
saying there will be certain factors like this where RBI will want to avoid some level of concentration risk. I'm not saying that it's 100% foolproof. There will be certain banks where RBI may allow also, but I'm saying it's one of those factors. So
With AU, there's one more point. So there, because the DNA, as opposed to other small finance banks, the DNA is an asset-backed financing NBFC, right? Versus MFIs mostly in other SFBs. In AU Small Finance Bank, that is a core business, and they're very, very, very good at it. They tried to enter into the unsecured space, like for example, microfinance with that acquisition.
But they went back on it, right?
Yeah, a credit card, same thing.
Yeah.
They recognize that there's a problem in the way that they were doing credit cards, and they've pulled back on it. I think those are all good signs of a lender that is careful about where they want to.
So if you want
put
to
their
compare
lending.
the MSME book or a lending practice of a small bank, do you think that it's at par with some of the other established banks?
They're at par with some of the smaller private banks, yes.
Like an IDFC and others?
IDFC is a bad example, but I think.
No, it's not. So, which is the better one?
So, unfortunately, as they grow into these spaces, you will want to, all we leave it at rather than opining, is you want to listen to management commentary and see performance in those spaces. So, like for example, MFI and unsecured, AU has clearly not done well in that.
Yeah.
And that is why there's been a large contraction with regard to its multiple as well. From 4 times it went to 2.1 times. Thereafter, correctly as observed by the viewer, it's gone up 30% or whatever. But point being that you will want to keep an eye out on those pockets, because as they grow geography as well as they grow different products, how is it that asset quality evolves will hold the key. Vishy can obviously give better input.
No, I think
Yes.
I think he's absolutely right. I think as the development happens of this lending institution, remember as a bank, it's just been 7 years since they became a small finance bank. You have to give them the time to grow, but even amongst the small finance bank, I think AU is probably the one thing that stands out as a well diversified, well managed institution. I have a core problem with the differentiated bank license theory that was floated originally and then implemented in the small finance bank and the payments bank space. I don't think this was a very well thought out experiment. I thought the experiment has, at the end of the day, failed. That is why you are now giving a chance to these banks to go out and become universal banks. And they should have stuck to the universal bank license scheme, because that is the one that works. The minute you put small finance bank on the board, trust factor does get affected. In fact, SFBs have made this petition to the RBI saying that let us call ourselves banks. We are banks for all intents and purposes, for all regulatory purposes, we are banks. But you force us to put small finance ahead of that bank word. And then that affects the way people perceive
And my
it.
cost of funds go up by 1.5% as a result of that.
Absolutely. No. Interestingly, cooperative banks are allowed to put bank in there, right? Like a Saraswat
Yes.
bank.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a cooperative bank. which
Yes.
You can brand yourself as a bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Small finance banks are not allowed to do that.
To do that, right? So, there are a lot of banking questions. SBI Cards is one which is coming your way, Vishy. When everybody is talking about risk in microfinance and personal loans, why is SBI Cards doing well?
There is So it's with SBI Cards, the thing
They're
is
losing market share, it seems, right?
yeah, I mean, of course they will have to, because not more than 6 months ago their NPA was so bad. So yeah, they will have to give up market share, let the other banks take up the slack. The core problem with SBI Cards was their asset quality, and that was coming from bad. Well, not bad, but maybe not so great underwriting that they were doing, and mostly in the corporate credit card space. That is one of the areas that really hurt them. They have tried to recoup all of that by cutting exposures, by becoming tighter in terms of extending more lines. Those are all good things. Again, wait and see, because the core problem with this SBI card entity is the fact that they do not have stable leadership. Their leadership, whoever becomes the CEO of that company, in less than 2 years gets pulled back into the bank.
True. But
There are two MDs in bank who were both CEOs of this company who were called back.
Also to some level,
Yeah.
because of performance as well, because
Yeah.
because just the entity isn't performing like the way and
It was the
SBI
second largest
entity
issuer
should.
not very long ago.
So,
You have
from the current-
45 crore customers to pool from, and you're not able to pool the right.
yeah, there is no overlap, very limited overlap between SBI and SBI cards. So that is the problem.
From the earnings season Q4 and the banks which have come in, what is the key takeaway for card business which is coming in?
No, it's getting better for sure, but it's definitely not out of the woods entirely, Vishy.
My view is that this is a bad time to be in the credit card business. I think right now the default rates have not improved. The portfolio at risk has gone up actually, which indicates that in the future default rates will keep remaining
Will stay
higher.
elevated.
Unless, of course, you suddenly push credit, in which case you're inviting more trouble for later. So everybody's a little circumspect. Every single lender, including HDFC and ICICI, who are two very large issuers of credit cards, they've also cut down on their credit card issuances, simply because currently the market is just too uncertain. And the whatever performing credit that is there in the credit card business, and there's a lot of it, a majority of that is only transactor. So in credit cards, there are two kinds of portfolios: a transactor and a revolver. Transactor is somebody who borrows, swipes their card and repays the entire amount at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Versus revolver, who will pay the minimum due and carry on. For the bank, the revolver is the main focus, because that is where you can earn interest income. The transactor is not going to pay 25, 30, 40%
He's getting
interest.
the points and
he's getting and he's enjoying his life.
Yeah.
It's the revolver who's going to end up, who's the sucker in
Sajeet
this.
sir is the transactor. That's why he's smiling away to glory.
Yeah. मेरे को तो अपना credit card cut करना पड़ेगा. ऐसे नहीं होता भाई.
Final question on Federal Bank. Vigin Dharan has is Federal Bank worth betting on the basis of new management?
Too early, I think.
Too early to call, but they're making all the right noises,
They are,
Rishi.
they are. I
That
agree.
there's no doubt on.
That I agree.
Whatever
You give them 2
limited
quarters
interaction.
to perform and then
Yeah.
take a call?
Yeah, ideally.
and see, the capability is there to lead an ICICI bank type transition over the next 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah,
No doubt about
interestingly,
that.
everyone wants to do the ICICI Bank type. So, a year back, everyone
Everyone
wants
will
to
be
be
the next HDFC bank. Yeah.
Everyone wants to be
Now
the
nobody wants to be
bank.
HDFC bank. कौन करेगा? No, so
कर रहा है ना,
to be fair,
Kotak acquisition कर रहा है. Kotak wants to do an HDFC bank.
I just want to say that if somebody has given you a 5-year plan, then at least wait for 2-3 quarters before you can judge them on anything, right? The new CEO has given a 5-year plan on.
But is he delivering on
revamp.
any of them?
So far,
It's very early, sir, to say if they're delivering per se. See, they're making an attempt that I could feel, and they're making an honest attempt. This is my conversation with them that I could feel.
Yeah.
But abhi, sir, everything depends on execution, unfortunately. So you have to wait.
Exactly.
And see, I'll call out the positives also. Asset quality has been very good in this cycle. It's difficult to find a bank, and within the top 5 only we've suggested that there has been so many issues. Federal that way has been very steady with regard to slippages, credit costs. They have a very small MFI book that they've said that there has been some problem there, but outside of that, it's been fairly stable that
And
way.
I think it's one of the banks which gets a lot of remittances, right?
Yeah.
So remittance business, even though remittance in general has become a bit of a slow burner now, But yes, Federal is one of the leaders when it comes to, I think, among the top 3 or 4.
Yes.
When it comes to remittances.
So we are running out of time. So there was one question on Motilal Oswal and chemical businesses, but we saw CDSL numbers today, right? I mean, it was disappointing.
Not the best.
Yeah, Q4 was much bad.
So top line was,
revenues are coming down.
Yes.
Your IPOs were much lower in Q4, so the revenues from there is coming down.
I think it's more market forces and regulatory forces than the core business.
Yeah.
The business seems okay.
So within the capital market, what we have seen is that your wealth managers are doing well, the AMCs are doing well. Your CAMS, K-Fintech is also doing well because of the international business which is there. But your CDSLs and others are not doing well because
your infrastructure plays are not there.
Yeah.
But your
infrastructure institutions.
But your AMC business, your wealth management is still relatively okay. Motilal, I've honestly not looked at the numbers in granularity, but my understanding is that there were some treasury losses which were booked this time, and mark-to-market losses. And unfortunately, that's accounting for them, and therefore the numbers were a little subdued. But outside of that, infrastructure plays have not done as well. That's
my
just
producer is insisting that I should talk about Servo Tech Renewable. Apparently, they have done some tie with Elon Musk, who is the father of Elon Musk.
He's joining the global board.
Yeah, but I should warn investors that these tie-ups doesn't matter, because if you go and see the letter, what is going to be, it's basically he'll go and visit the factories, he will go and see Varanasi and other areas and all, but that does not bring the company much of revenue in that sense. So please don't get swayed by these kind of announcements, and it's for me it's a frivolous announcement. And Elon Musk doesn't, though he's the father of Elon Musk, I think there's a strained tie between both of them actually.
Yeah.
So be careful what you are investing in based on these kind of announcements. And with that, we close today's Bulls, Bears and Banter.
Thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Chale?
Let's go.
Because there's just too much on.
But there's too much.
हाँ एग्जैक्टली लास्ट वीक अभी पूरा बैंक रिजर्व ही था अभी तो खत्म हो गया
अभी कुछ है
Now it's over.
ऑल द बिग बैंक्स आर
अभी सिर्फ LIC बाकी है सर आपका LIC